All right, should be all good to go, all live and everything. I'm currently setting up the paywall show at the moment. We'll probably be here for probably 20 minutes on this one, talking about whatever you guys want to talk about or look at. Once I kind of get through kind of at least the breakdown for Nashville, I'm almost done setting this up on my end. And yet again, you can always find the paywall links in the TrueDFS Discord and the NASCAR channel. Let me just finish that. And we are all going to go there. Cool. Cool. And that's done. All right, let's get all this stuff on the screen here for you guys. Huge window today. 6 hours, 44 minutes until the slate locks. So plenty of time to, really do whatever you guys want to do. I see a question right there. Hold on. Let me move everything around. Damn, dude. The show yesterday did pretty good with 600 views. I'm just seeing that. What is this? Let's see. What's going on? You don't have a package if just your projections paywall. I do actually. Here, let me go ahead and get up all this on the screen here. Milton is asking if I have a package just for myself, or not just for myself, but you know what I mean. Wrong one. I have too many tabs open. Let me move my actually open SaberSim to the side here. Sorry. Anyway, you don't have a package if just for your projection paywall show. I do have a NASCAR specific package just for people. Now, yet again, this has gone up in price so much, mainly because Astukas, you have access to my stuff, my projections, sheets projections, Astukas' stuff as well, plus the premium Discord and just access. Like as long as you're just a paying subscriber to TrueDFS, I'll coach, help you, whatever you want to do, right? So, it is $40 there. I would highly encourage you to get any of these packages just because you get our stuff, all of our projections across the board of all the sports that we do. And then you also get access to all the pay dirt tools that James makes. And then you obviously have access to SaberSim as your as basically like the third site you have access to. And then the main difference of these is what version of SaberSim do you have. If you want the contest sims and everything, you need the ultimate package. If you just want the optimizer, you can use any of these. And then the main difference is just building how many lineups you can build and stuff to answer your question there. I'm going to open this up twice. So right here, as stated and as mentioned, in multiple videos and stuff, this is typically how I use the lap by lap analyzer if I want to look at specific data points and stuff, and I don't necessarily want to waste time loading or going through race and reference or driver averages or any of these other publicly available NASCAR sites and stuff, and I want to find more specific things. But what I want to do first is go ahead and look at a few pages from the Cup dashboard that Astukas puts together yet again. I would highly encourage anybody looking through, if you have access to our stuff, look through all these in detail because it'll help you out tremendously to get an idea of what is going on in the race specifically. Now, when I look at how I want to approach Nashville, I'm more inclined to view this race as passing being more difficult, in the back half and the second half, and and even between the range of 27 to probably 16th. I just feel like that's going to be an area that passing obviously is going to be very, very difficult to. And we're looking at people in the back of the field like Larson, for example. I can't think of anybody else at the moment off the top of my head. But I'm more inclined to see them take a lot more laps than you typically take at an intermediate track to pass somebody. When we're looking at the usual tracks in the intermediates and stuff, and obviously this is concrete, a lot slower banking, a lot slower mid-corner speed and stuff. So typically if you have Larson or somebody in the back of the field at Charlotte or Kansas or whatever, and they have a faster car, it typically take a lap and a half to make a pass on somebody. Here, I'm much more inclined to project that in the range of probably 3.5 to 4 laps to set it up. Because if you mess up turn 1 or 2 or whatever, right? Once the field is spread out, they're probably gonna be taking like 2 to 3 laps to set a pass up, once we're deep in the ruts and stuff, and so because of that, this is actually a race to where I'm much more likely to probably play guys starting higher up, um, than normal. Now, that doesn't mean I'm gonna play, 7 guys in the top 10 or whatever, but if my stuff is showing people like, starting in the teens and stuff, I'm much more inclined to play those guys versus, possibly chasing guys in the back of the field more. We look at these races here and we see the amount of leaders, 9, 12, 7. Now, yet again, this can just be under yellow or whatever the case may be. But we have 15, 4, and 10 cautions in these races here. The green flag laps. Now, yet again, we typically have 267 at intermediates. Here we have 300. So the green flag laps have been 252, 276, and 270 or 252, 273, and 243. Um, and the reason I'm looking at this, the reason I always go through this is, when we're looking at the amount of cars left on the lead lap at the end of the race, 24, 21, 26. I mean, that's a good portion of the field. That's nearly, I mean, really outside of like the slow guys or people involved in wrecks, that's nearly the entire field at the end of these races being someone on the lead lap. Um, like that's pretty significant. So it leans to a lot of people still being in play late in the race. We don't necessarily have to worry about people being trapped a lap down or not being able to move up through the field or whatever the case may be. Obviously, last year we wrecked a lot of people. We had 10 people DNF last year, and the last 2 races before that, we only had 1 in each, and then very little mechanical failures in these races here. The one thing I wanted to focus on first is yet again, when you're going, you can find this on the lap analyzer and stuff. When I'm looking specifically at the Nashville races, these last ones that we've ran, and I look specifically at where the let's go here to start, where the laps led have come from. Okay, now we're gonna see, in some of these races we've had lap leaders be spread out, and some guys lead, you know, like 40, 50, 70 laps. Other ones we've had runaways and stuff. But we typically, or at least we're seeing, your main lap leader, or rather the pole sitter in this race led 71 laps, 41. I know it's Hamlin, but I'm more so looking at where the laps led, or the laps led are coming from, just based on the starting grid really fast. I'm looking through. So that was last year's race 23. We had Pole and Chastain lead 100, and then Reddick led 33. Obviously, guys in the back of the field who have speed or whatever, like who just didn't qualify on the pole. I'm not really concerned about that at the moment. I'm more so going through this because we need to talk about what we're doing with Briscoe, Hamlin, Byron, so on and so forth and stuff. We look back at the race from 3 years ago. Denny Hamlin 116, 41 from Elliott. And then we look at 2021, and we're seeing Eric Almirola at 11, Kyle Busch 15, Larson at 121, starting from 5th. Okay, and so when we're looking at this race today, and Briscoe started up front. Obviously, he started up front last week in the Coke 600 and stuff. And obviously, is Hamlin going to race or not? It's whatever. Like we don't know that. I think right now, most people are going to have Hamlin, including myself, projected as the main favorite to win and lead the most amount of laps in this race, and then probably Byron second, and then splitting hairs between like Reddick, Bell, and Chastain for the rest of that. But if Hamlin doesn't run, let's factor that in first. If Hamlin doesn't run, I think you slam in Byron and Reddick and potentially have more exposure to um, a possibility of Chase Briscoe to lead early at $8,900. But if Hamlin is in play, which is the scenario I'll be speaking of throughout this video and the paywall show, I think you have to project kind of a repeat of what we saw last week in the Coke 600. Now, granted, Byron continuously led the entire race, but he never really pulled away from Hamlin. Like Hamlin was right there, and it was more so just coming down to like minute details in variance, whether it be like pit road, whether Byron has a bad pit lane, Denny Hamlin could have got the lead, whether Hamlin gets a better restart than Byron, or whatever the case may be. But I think we're going to see the running order be Hamlin and Byron, with probably Reddick Bell and then Chastain, once, kind of things sort out once we get through stage 1 and stuff, and so, when we're leading here or when we're, like, building and analyzing stuff, um, Hamlin at 10-7 and Byron at 10-8, I'm gonna be leaning to playing both of those guys together. Now Larson's at 11,000, okay, and when we look at where Larson has been, um, in my stuff, obviously Larson is, is gonna compete to win, outside of races where he's wrecked out. Obviously, he crashed out at Darlington and then, self-spun from the lead in Charlotte and stuff. But when we're looking at where, Byron is, when we're looking at where Hamlin is, that's why Hamlin missing. Like if Hamlin, at least we should know beforehand. Um, I would lean more towards if he starts the race. If his wife goes into labor, I doubt he's leaving. Right, like he's starting the race. I just can't imagine. Like you've already kind of committed to missing your kid being born. Um, Worst case scenario, Hamlin starts a race, his wife has a baby, and then, Ryan Truex gets in there. I mean, those lineups are fucking dead because Truex ain't gonna do shit in this car. But Hamlin's your favorite. We look at where Reddick is, and I would argue that Reddick's, underperformed based on some expectations that he should have had entering certain races and stuff. But still, when we're looking at where these guys are at, Reddick, we have Ross, obviously, um, you have Hamlin. Like all these guys are looking very, very decent. Especially when we look at these guys, deep in the run, between, Byron, Hamlin, Reddick, like these guys are the best guys in today's race. Those four drivers, and I would lean towards not including Larson in that, just because, as I said, I think he's going to be stuck in traffic probably more so than normal. This is a very, very difficult track to pass at, and that's going to probably be the stance that I'm taking, of chasing, the potential lap leaders up here versus chasing Larson at 11,000. As we kind of continue through here, we look at the Dominator analysis for tracks and contests that have a similar amount of laps, when we're looking at 300 laps. So yet again, this is focusing on the contest sizes for DraftKings. So you have New Hampshire, that's 300. You have Phoenix, that's 312. Obviously Nashville at 300 and stuff. And so when we're looking specifically at those types of tracks, and we're looking, and yet again, this is just for the sake of looking at the DK contest because it has a very similar scoring to these tracks versus other intermediates, since the other intermediates have like 267 laps led. And we look specifically at the Nashville races. Your main lap leader, and really your top two lap leaders, obviously the main runaway, but still we're seeing at least two people typically lead over 50 laps, or at least be in that range for laps led, and then the standard fast laps, given out between those two guys are right around like 40 to 38 and stuff. So like those should be the projections that kind of line up similar with what should be expected for a Denny Hamlin outcome, a William Byron outcome, even potentially a Larson. So yet again, this is why projections and stuff are so important. I'm not saying they're right or wrong, but if you think Larson is gonna like compete to win this race, right? That means he's gone up through the field, and statistically, he should at least have like 30 laps led, and like 10 fast laps. That's, I mean, he's blowing the contest out of the water, or he's blowing everybody else out of the water based on his projected scoring and stuff. Because I don't see him winning this race. Um, I don't see him leading and stuff. That leans to me being underweight on Larson, if not, completely not playing him, because I just don't think that is going to be an outcome that is going to happen. In likelihood of a Larson victory, obviously he's going up through the field. He's probably not just leading on the last lap, and so he's like blowing the field away. So if you think Larson is going to win today, um, you would probably be inclined to obviously just play him plus one Hamlin, Byron, or like Chastain Bell or whatever. Um, but I'm just not going to go down that avenue. I just don't think that's viable today, um, due to what the outcome that Larson wins actually looks like. As we continue on, Yet again, I'm not going to go through all this stuff. You guys can, obviously look through if you have the subscription and stuff. What's going on, Vinny? Happy to have you here. I'm doing well. Hope you're doing well as well. Lastly, we look at, or the two last things we're going to look at here are the place differential stuff. And so, like when we're looking at guys who are coming through the backfield, now yet again, this is looking at tracks that are similar in terms of we're looking at similar tracks with similar lap counts right here. So obviously, we're looking at places like New Hampshire and Phoenix. So that's what Astukas chooses to look at, since he runs more contest sims and stuff on his own accord and stuff. Yet again, that's a great thing about TrueDFS. Now, some people might not like that. Some people do like that. But the fact that we have different opinions and different projection sets and stuff from different people, yet again, one of the most important things that you can do for DFS is, and I'm saying this in the sense of, we have this on our website between my projections, Sheets' projections, and SaberSim's projections. I mean, you can aggregate those individual projections. You can look at things in different forms or fashions, or like whatever the case may be. Just more data points to look at from different opinions. I would argue. I would always indicate that is just a, what is it? I mean, advantage, but that's not the word I want to use. Just a good thing to have. But when we're sitting here, we're not really seeing a ton of place differential. It's very limited past 8 and 9 and stuff. Change my starting position, like still like not insane, not totally crazy. We look at let's look at Nashville specifically. So obviously it's been Bubba Wallace, Cindric, Kurt Busch, and Corey LaJoie as your biggest movers in these races and stuff. But I'm not entirely sold on chasing a lot of place differential in this race. Obviously, yet again, just kind of using it as the benchmark and stuff. To be your 10th best DraftKings score, you need at least 44 points today. So if you can't envision a guy scoring that many points, it's probably not a guy that you necessarily want to play. We look we look back at track performance really fast between the guys who have ran all these races and stuff. We're gonna look at speed rank here. For these guys, your best drivers here at Nashville have been Hamlin, Bell, Elliott, Chastain, Kyle Larson, even mean at 5th. Like, that's really, really interesting. Now, yet again, this is I don't even include Nashville in my intermediate stuff as well. But it's just interesting looking at Larson not performing nearly as well at this track versus other tracks. This is kind of what's concerning about Reddick as well. Potentially Byron too. Like I mean, Hamlin's the favorite, and literally the entire slate goes up in the air if he has to go and watch his kid be born and stuff. I think that's mainly it from this situation here. Obviously, kind of going through this really fast, just so you guys can see this. Obviously, this is where, and I was gonna say this is where Briscoe's been. Obviously, this is my sorting stuff. How I typically look at how people are running and stuff like that. We already looked at the big guys and stuff, but when you start getting to people like Keselowski, obviously Bell, right? But like, we look at the people who I would not really be wanting to play a lot. That seems to be like Keselowski and McDowell and stuff. And obviously, in the paywall show, we'll go through and see what my stuff is giving me, what Sheets of stuff is showing, what SaberSim is going, and then what the contest sims are showing and stuff, so we can kind of get an idea of what the layout of the potential contest can be. But what I was indicating earlier is, instead of potentially, focusing on guys back here. Now, I'm not saying Hocevar can't get through the field. Obviously, he had a great car last year or last week. Zane Smith as well. Although those are probably the two best guys back here with the potential of what Corey Heim can do in order of like passing people. But I really, really like, kind of the teen range here between, was gonna say 15th, like 22nd and stuff. But more so kind of like, the upside that Priest has had. Now it's really interesting to see, especially since we've been at this year, of just how well Priest has been performing. I think him at 73 is a pretty I think that's a really, really good play. The upside with Barry, now he hasn't had as well of runs as of late that we saw early. Obviously, he put himself in position to win at Vegas and stuff, and then obviously, was up front at Martinsville and other situations here. I'm leaning towards having more interest in him versus, well, I don't know. There's not many 7K guys back here. 7K range really isn't. How many people are in the 7K range this week? It's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow, that's a really, really low 6K range. I was unaware that most of the field is under 7K. Interesting. Where's Gibbs at? I will say I'm probably not playing Suarez. I think the only two guys that I would really have interest playing from 28th on back is Gillen and Nemechek, with the potential upside of whatever Heim can offer here. But I think Gillen and Nemechek make a lot of sense. Yet again, we look at a race now. Yet again, they could be trapped lap down, right? But we look at a race to where we've had like 26 guys in the lead lap at the end of the race. Typically, Gillen has been finishing much better than how he's been running, and so if he's been, if this is where he is in terms of speed, and he's finishing, slightly better than that in these races, I'm more inclined to have interest in him. Same thing with Nemechek. Nemechek finally stopped wrecking. It seemed like last year he literally couldn't finish a race. But with the improvement that we've seen from Legacy, with how well Eric Jones has been running, I think Nemechek makes a lot of sense. Even with really piss poor looking practice data. Same thing with, him and Gillen are close together and stuff, but those two seem to be the better plays in the back of the field here. What's going on, Jason? I don't know. I haven't looked at what the potential ownership that Larson might have. I'm just going to assume kind of the gut feel that he's going to be heavily owned today, yet again, because his ranges of outcomes, yet again, this is what I'm not going to show much, because obviously this is FanDuel stuff, and these aren't even my sims, so I can't take credit for it and stuff. But these are outcomes that you should start, like when and yet again, I'm not really showing much here, right? But ranges of outcomes for drivers should be calculated correctly, and yet again with Larson and stuff, if he's gonna finish, competing for the lead and for the win, his default projection has to be like 85 points. Okay, if he's gonna do that, and then of course his ownership should be, near like 45-50%, right? But with how difficult Nashville is, with how difficult he's performed at Nashville, and understanding what ranges of outcomes are for him, it's either him scoring like 80 points, or he's probably going to be scoring like, what's a much more realistic thing here with Larson. So I'm not just jibba-japping off the top of my head. Like, he's probably going to be scoring closer to like 55 to 62 in most outcomes of this race, and that's just not going to be enough based on his price tag to really do anything. So I would only play Larson, and I hate really saying this, because like last week's a bad example, right? Or for this, maybe like this mentality, right? Because like we liked Ross Chastain last week, because last week watched Ross Chastain and Hostfar and all these guys were starting in the back of the field, like starting dead last, and this is typically where Chastain runs, right? Now Chastain had been performing so well, in these races. If you look at Chastain's average score this year, he's averaging 46 points. But you look at where he's been starting in these races, 40th, 26th, 31st, 32nd, and stuff. And we look specifically at like the intermediates um, and stuff like that. And that's causing, Chastain to pretty much score like 50 points like in all these races because he'd been starting in the back of the field and finishing, in this range and stuff. Now, yet again, we played Chastain last weekend, or you should in your head, because hey, he's going to hit value pretty easily at $9,000. He should very easily clear 45 points. He should realistically score like 52 in most situations. Now he just happens to win the race last week, right? But we didn't play Chastain because we wanted him to win. We played him because he's starting in the back of the field and he should be able to pay off his price tag. Yet again, you apply that same logic to nearly any place differential play that you start looking at, and then you combine that with where they're at in terms of salary. So, like Larson today, you're not playing Larson for place differential at 11,000 because if he gets up into the top 10 but doesn't do anything, as I said, he's scoring like 52, 54, 57, maybe 60 points uh, in those outcomes and stuff. But that's not going to be enough when we look at the amount of laps led that you're going to see from other people, in these races because he's having to go through the field, and Nashville's a very difficult track to pass at and stuff. Obviously, when we went through all these earlier, although ironically, I'm on a one that Larson, led 264 laps at. You're playing Larson today because you think he's going to win the race because that's the only way he realistically works from a DFS perspective. You then look at that logic and combine that with where I would assume he comes in at. I mean, I think Saberson currently right now has him at 56. I'm much more um, inclined to believe what Sheets has projected. So let me go ahead and look through his stuff really fast. If you like this type of analysis, or you feel like I'm not saying anything at all, yet again, that's why I have paywall shows to go over specifically what I'm looking at. Sheets has Larson projected for 41% ownership today. I think due to all the stuff I've looked at, I think the move is to be underweight on that play. Uh, and then in situations that you play Larson, it's because he's going to win the race. But I don't think Larson wins the race today. So I'm going to be underweight on him. What else are we saying here? I don't think we have any other questions past that. I think I'm going to go ahead and start the paywall show. We'll go ahead and take a gander at where people are scoring and stuff like that. We can look at projections and stuff. If you made it this far and maybe I didn't mention somebody that you wanted to ask or whatever, again, sorry, like, buy our stuff. But like, I'm sure somebody's going to be like, you haven't mentioned Alex Bowman and stuff. Pretty clear and obvious play. I don't think we need to really go over why you should play Alex Bowman. It makes a lot of sense. Anyway, see you guys in the paywall show. Thank you for being here, and I will see you guys shortly in a minute. Bye-bye.